Let me give you an example. You can, how the immune system works. You can, compassion, there was a study that McClellan did with Mother Teresa. He calls her the Rorschach of compassion because it's a great study. He showed a group of people, Mother Teresa doing her work with HIV patients and lepers and so forth, for 15 minutes, and another group, she showed them a Nazi film, what the Nazis had done. They measured pre-post something called IgA, which is one of the antibodies that we have, and it's usually in the saliva and the mucous membranes. It protects you against upper respiratory viruses. The people that watched Mother Teresa, the IgAs went up significantly for an hour or more. The people that watched the Nazi film, the IgAs went down. So you're more prone to catching a bronchial type of virus if you watch those movies. Now think about this for a second. The news. Okay? Get away from the news. So, but what happened is that McClellan found that some of these people, their IgAs dropped very quickly, and he couldn't figure out what's going on, so they replicated and added a new variable. And what he did was, in addition to the IgAs, and then I'll tell you in a minute what all the other things they did, but he had them look at a picture of a couple sitting on a bench so you could project your own scripts to it. And some people would say, oh, they're in love, they're getting ready to marry, and they're wonderful, they're going to have a child. Another group said, he caught her with another man, and blah. Those are the IgAs that went down. So the story is this. IgAs will go up independent of your cynicism, but they won't stay up very high if you have a cynical view of the world. They'll go up. I mean, compassion will bring IgAs up. Then they tested T cells, they tested NK cells, they tested neutrophils, everything went up with compassion. So it's the most evolved emotion that we have. And we're wired for that kind of emotion. Hoffman did some research with what he calls the precursors to empathy. It's not a learned thing, it's wired. We're wired for empathy. He studied babies that were a few days old. And he would have another baby cry, and the newborn would cry. And they thought, well, it's just imitative behavior. They taped the other baby. The new baby didn't cry. They taped the baby's own cry. The baby didn't cry. And this is what he calls precursors to empathy. Sociopaths never learn to expand and trigger that empathy, so they can't jump. In the guardians of the heart, you have to have two things. You have to have gratitude and empathic leap. If you have those two things, you can leave. You don't need anything else here. But it takes a while to learn those things. The gratitude means that you're willing to accept, and if you're willing to accept, you can feel the gratitude. Tremendous immune enhancer. Empathic leap means that you need to get out of yourself to feel not you as the other person, but to feel as if you were the other person. And here's the mistake that people make. Empathic leap, they usually think that they're jumping out, and what they're doing is they're jumping out of themselves, acting as themselves. It's narcissistic. So adolescents don't have the cortical development yet to understand empathy. Don't ever ask them for empathy. Don't ever ask them, how would you feel if I did that to you? I'd feel okay. Because if you're late, they're late, and he gets there an hour later, and you say, you're late, and they don't have that self-respect yet to, the time is important, and you have to honor yourself. And you say, how would you feel if I were late? I wouldn't have any problems. It's okay. So because what they do is they get out of themselves as themselves to see how they feel as themselves under your conditions. That's a projection. That's not empathy. Empathy, you have to get out of yourself and become that person and the needs of that person to be able to do that. Otherwise, you don't see their pain. You have to see their pain as them. So you transcend into the person as much as you can. Another thing that's very important, in pop psychology, they tell you you have to really make your needs very clear. You're not a robot. You sometimes don't know what your needs are. And you know what I'm going to suggest to you? That you learn to guess your partner's needs, to anticipate your partner's needs. If a baby can differentiate between anger and laughter after a few hours, imagine the ability that we have to pick up on cues. You have a spouse who comes in very late, tired, you don't have to be a neurosurgeon to understand that person is drained and that their wound is going to have a high probability of acting out. So if you anticipate, then you can give that person the covenant of safety by creating a healing field for that person. And love is very reciprocal. You know, when you give love, it's very easy to give it back. So you create that covenant of safety, and then the healing becomes, the wound becomes a challenge that you keep as a precious gift for the rest of your life. So the haunting memories become healing guides when you do that. And it works because you're working with symbols, not with evidence.
Could you explain the gratitude steps in that, please?
Okay. The gratitude, you first have to be worthy. It goes back to self-esteem. You can't feel gratitude if you're not worthy of gratitude. So before you can learn gratitude, you have to learn self-worth. Before you learn self-worth, you have to learn keeping commitment with self. So gratitude is a behavior that needs to be, an emotion that needs to be learned. It's very complex. And so is empathy. Empathy is one of the most evolved emotions. Fear is one of the simplest, and it comes from, from middle brain, from hippocampus in that area. So it's pretty primitive. And you only have fear, and you only have love, and then they develop. Another, does somebody have? Okay, the sequence is this. Before you can feel gratitude, which is the acceptance of the gift, you have to have self-worth. And before you can have self-worth, you have to have self-love, which is the valuation of self, and you gain it, the meter goes up when you keep self-caring commitments. One of the things that you might want to do is, I'll give you an example. Dress up to kill and take yourself out to dinner. And the first thing that comes up, oh, why bother? No, people are going to think, that's it. That tells you that you're not worthy of that kind of behavior. Will you do it with somebody else? Yeah. You wouldn't do it for yourself. Prepare a candlelit dinner for yourself. Will you do it? Yes. Self-esteem is self-esteem an immune system enhancer? Yes, it is. If you have no self-esteem, you're more prone to illnesses, infections, and all kinds of things. Because you don't allow the abundance of all the things of love and all the things that you need.
I have the mic, so I'm sorry. Did you finish? Oh, I just wanted to know if this is my cynicism or if it's accurate. It seems to me that this culture right now is producing far more sociopathic people. That is, people unable to have genuine empathy. Maybe it's just that I work with a lot of very sick people, and that's who I'm seeing. But I'm asking, what do you think? Are we producing fewer and fewer people who can make this leap?
Well, what's happening is that our brains are programmed, they're designed are neuropsychologically for the next 100,000 years. Okay. But the information is coming so quickly that the nervous system doesn't adjust. The information is there, but it doesn't adjust. And then you create the ADDs, the ADHDs, the fibromyalgias, and all these kinds of things. And then you create a protective, hypervigilant kind of way of looking at the world, because there's so much information, good and bad, that what you do is you begin to protect yourself. But what you're doing is you're buying into the social system of advertising, news, and all these other things that are telling you that the world is dangerous. Go out, and you'll see on the media, what do they call those big billboards? Yeah. You'll see, you don't need to have chest pain. You don't need to have this. MRIs, bypass. There's a hospital in Nashville that specializes in, it's a St. Thomas Hospital, specializes in heart transplants and bypasses. You don't want to go there. If you have a cold, you'll get a bypass. $50,000 per patient. So it's become an industry, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you look at the world with a hammer, you're going to see nails everywhere. So if you're a surgeon, although you need surgery, and but you have a predisposition to see what you know. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, so you have to be very careful where you get sick. The worst place to get sick is in a hospital. But, Is there any way to have a relationship with a sociopath? Yes, if you want to be a victim. That's it. Yeah. And now, the covenant of safety can be violated with betrayal. If the betrayal was done dishonestly. anything can happen and if it's done with truth, if it's done with confusion or not being clear in what you're doing, that could be forgiven. You can't forgive betrayal if it's done actively to hurt you, because you have violated the most honorable of the covenants of love. Yes. Can sociopaths be rehabilitated? Okay. I worked for the prison system for 3 years. You're with the prison system, right? Okay. When I came in, I didn't believe in the death sentence. When I left, I believed in selective death sentence. Because there are people that are subhuman. I mean, that's their place in life, to be subhuman. People like, for example, people that do contract murder, serial killers. And there is such a thing as evil. It's very important to see that there's evil in the world. I don't think there's demons or Satan. I think there's evil, and evil can be accumulated, and it can drain you, and it can kill you. But to go back to the question, very seldom, because of the wiring. But I've seen some things happen that have been, very impressive. When I was with a maximum security psychiatric facility, and you know how that is. And I had someone that I helped that I thought he had the ability to come out and redeem himself, and I got him from the main prison to the psychiatric facility, and he became an assistant, the technician that they have, and this person made some incredible changes, and he saved my life once. So it's possible, but it's highly unlikely, unfortunately. Yeah. No, because actually it was detrimental. What he did, he put himself in jeopardy. Because you know how it works when you give information to the enemy, you're dead. And we had to transfer him, actually. Yeah. But those acts, and see, they don't have the ability to empathically leap. But somehow it happened with this guy, and he leaped, and he saw something greater than self.